What's going on, everyone? I'm back with the final mythic boss of Castle Denathrius, Sire Denathrius. This is a pretty technical fight with a lot of tight damage checks and precise positioning, and it's pretty unforgiving for fire, but ultimately it's rather scripted, so once you get it down, it's not too bad. So I'm going to take you through our first kill and the kill that got us cutting edge. Quick look at my build here, nothing too out of the ordinary. Only noteworthy talent selection is Living Bomb, which might sound patty, but if there's ever a problem in P1, it's only going to be due to a lack of ad damage, so Living Bomb really helps with that. And you certainly don't need the extra boss damage in P1. In fact, we're stopping damage on the boss rather early as it is. And also, you're not fireballing hardly at all once you get into P3, which is really where your boss damage matters, so Conflict wouldn't get much value anyway. As for gear, Disciplinary Command, Soul Igniter, and the PvP badge, I also went away from a super high haste build, which is what you'd want for fire in most content, but for single target execute, which again is when it really comes down to it, is the make or break determining factor for getting the kill. So I'd rather lean more towards the verse mastery side of things. For soulbinds, definitely Karain, 100%. No questions asked there. Wild Hunt Tactics gets so much value on this fight, and it alters our playstyle and our target selection because it's so powerful. You basically have it up for all of Phase 1, almost all of P2, and almost all of P3. Other than that, though, Phase 1's pretty uneventful, so I'm just going to let this roll while I go through the rest of my intro so it doesn't go too long. On pull here, honestly, the hardest thing in Phase 1 is coping with the lag and the frame drop that comes with spawning a lot of ads. For this very first one, we have a 3-stack here, a 3-stack here, and a 2-stack here. So we end up spawning, I want to say 26 ads. So I literally start the pull with nameplates off, which seemed to help with the lag, not having to render so many of the Echo of Sin nameplates. But this is a single target combust, which I pot for just because there's not a better place to use it where I would also still have it for P3. Living Bomb and Shifting Power when the ads come in. One last Flame Strike to clean up the ads. And just soak lines. After this, I'll mirror image for this first blood price. And then during the blood price, I do two things. I focus the gateway, and also I just turn my nameplates back on so I can see the boss health. There's 3 gateways that we take in this fight, each more important than the last, so I just like to focus them. That way I have it on focus, and I can just interact with focus rather than having to try to click the gateway physically when there's 10 people around it or trying to click it within like a 1-second window. But not too much going on in P1 here. The only interesting thing I would say that we do in P1 is we have our Feral go to 0 stacks so that he can roar when we all get yanked to the middle, which makes it so that everyone can stay on 3 stacks and still make it rather than having to go down to 2. And we also have me and our other mage go to 0 stacks as well, so you'll see me tanking a lot of these. Down to 2 stacks now, I end up going to 0, because if you have 0 stacks when you do the march for the intermission, if you don't have any stacks, you don't get affected, so I can pretty much just stand there and cast normally. And we did that because our DPS cooldowns in Phase 2 were such that we were holding Combust anyway, so this way it just lets us eke out some extra boss damage in P1 where we would have been holding Combust anyway. Second AoE Combust here, just killing ads. Like I said, boss damage doesn't matter, we're super far ahead. I have a death there, but we can get him up. Second pizza slice, no gateway for this one, but it's fine, just blink over there. So here my focus now is not doing too much damage because you don't want to phase the boss too early, but at the same time I need to farm back my Combust. This fight, I mentioned being unforgiving for fire. P2 and P3 is incredibly tight timings for your Combust, where you pretty much need to have it every single minute. So I need to not push the boss too early, but also I need to get Combust back. Because now that I'm on 0 stacks, I can do that intermission Combust that I mentioned. So full stop boss damage here. Just clean up these last ads before we transition. And I want to make sure here, when we get towards the end of the phase, that I proc my DC early enough. Should be doing it soon. Yep, there it is, the Frost Nova. I want to proc it early enough to where I can proc it again when our feet hit the floor. So here, come out of this, and I can cast normally, so I'll Augment Rune and Combust. Augment Rune there, because we want to have it for the fight, obviously, but we don't want to waste the money if we have like a random P1 wipe, so. And then here, I could have pyroed again, but in my experience, when I fire off things at the very last millisecond, they just kind of fizzled in the air and never actually hit them, so I just held it. And then we'll get into P2 here. So as soon as our feet hit the floor, we kind of go off into 2 kill groups. So we have all our range to go over here to the northwest and hit Sincere, and all our melee are going to gate over to Evershade, who has 2 adds that need to be kicked. This is, I was going to say probably, but this is definitely the worst P2 I had in all of progression. So this is going to be super cringe. If you've played Fire for any amount of time, this is probably going to hurt your eyes. So just do as I say and not as I did is what I'm trying to get at. So here I am going to use that Pyro I saved and then Shifting Power, because you got to get your Combust back almost every minute on the dot. So here we're just hitting Sincere, dodging lines, and I'm not getting any crits. No crits, no crits, no crits. So what happens is my Combust cooldown is a lot higher than it should normally be, which just scuffs the entire phase. It sounds dramatic to say that, but the fight for Fire is so scripted in the sense that you have to combust immediately when it comes up. So now I'm just like 6 to 8 seconds behind for the entire phase, with really no great way of correcting it. So melee must have just killed Evershade, so we get these puddles. So we gotta dodge these. So now I know that Evershade just died, and the tank is off positioning the boss where he needs to go. We need the boss to be hitting Gloomveil with the next Racking Pain, and also be in a position to where we get gripped. We can run through the mirror. Finish up Sincere, so we get the crescendos from that. We get gripped over to Denathrius, as you saw the Racking Pain hit Gloomveil there. So go through the mirror and wait for Impales. I don't get this Impale, so I'm free to proc DC, go back through, and gate over to Gloomveil. You can see I still have 8 seconds on Combust. I'm put behind from not getting any crits on Sincere, so this just ruins the whole phase, like I said. So I'm just behind here. And Gloomveil has a mechanic where you have to be in range of her to actually hit her. And as these massacres come out, I keep getting backed up, as you'll see. I keep getting backed up by bad massacres, so I'm actually out of range. So it just made a bad Combust even worse. Luckily, everyone else was blasting us, so we still killed her on time. So we're dealing with Gloomveil, and then during that melee tagged Dusk Hollow, which yanks them over to him, and they finished off him. So now we have all 4 horsemen dead. And we get gripped through, and now we're into the part of phase 2 where it's just the 2 bosses and Cabalists. During this phase, Remornia and Sire share health, so anytime I want boss damage, I'm going to be hitting Remornia if possible, because she's above 75% health, which means I get Wild Hunt tactics the entire time I'm hitting her. So whenever I want boss damage. And then here I was holding Rune and my DC just to see if I got the Impales or not. I didn't get these Impales, so I'm free to proc DC, Rune, and after this Racking Pain is when I'll Shifting Power, just hit these adds. And just hitting Remornia for as long as I can. She's about to leave to do her massacre, so I switch back to Denathrius. And just dodge stuff here. It's hard to, in this phase, find the time or the space to Fireball. So I end up just scorching for most of that. Now that I found some space, I'm looking down at the Hand of Destruction cast timer, and I'm seeing if I have time to Fireball or not, because as I've been saying, it's so important to get your Combust back, that just squeezing in 1 or 2 Fireballs as opposed to Scorches is really crucial. So here I just have enough time for 2 Fireballs instead of Scorches, so that helps a lot. And then here, I would proc DC and Combust Remornia, but I'm still 8 seconds behind, like I'm going to be the entire phase. So I gotta kind of wait, and I get the Impale. Just alter, do my Impale, and then I'm combusting Remornia again for the Wild Hunt tactics. So here, the boss hit these 2 Cabalists with the Racking Pain, and then the tanks need to zoom themselves over to the other side to position the boss over there, so that he's in position to hit the next Cabalist with the next Racking Pain. So these second and third sets are kind of tight timers. So we finish off these 2 Cabalists, so we'll have 2 Crescendos on the way over. Just hit Remornia. Another massacre, so back to Denathrius. Here I just proc DC with Frost and Nova because I didn't have time to Frostbolt. As we get yanked here, I switch to the Kabbalist just because it's an execute range. And then here I just went to the back of the room right away because while it is possible, it's very unlikely that you get 2 sets of impales back to back. So I was pretty sure I was going to get that one, so I just went to the back right away. Could have got punished, but I think it's fine. Getting Remornia now that she's back. And then after this Racking Pain, I can go with a DC Shifting Power. Just get out of there, give myself some more space in the back of the room. Get Remornia. That feels bad. Sitting boss here. Last Cabal, so the fight is dead. Just to the bosses. Get yanked here through the mirror for this last hand of destruction. And we get ready to go into phase 3. So this is the first time where we get a moment to breathe and just hit the boss for a second before we transition. So I get a brief reprieve to gather my cooldowns, as this is the only time in this phase when I don't need to be combusting right away, so I can catch back up, and I should be back on track now from that earlier sincere nonsense. And after that atrocity of a P2 where I basically just ran it down, I really need to get my act together for this P3. I think I played this phase, I would say, pretty well. There's certainly a few globals that I'm still kicking myself over, but overall I'm pretty happy with it. So about to transition, he has a timer down here when he transitions, but we transition based on percentage. So the ranged group stays upstairs, and then our melee plus 1 mage for lust take the mirror back into the downstairs realm. So I come out of this, and this is my pot, and I combust immediately. Because again, going back to that idea of really, really tight combust timings, I need to get this combust on cooldown as quickly as possible and start working towards the next one. So my next one of this phase is a super tight window. Just alter that one. It's hard to find knockbacks to alter in this phase because a lot of times the melee, or a lot of times the melee get knocked into where we are. So if I alter back too soon or too recklessly, I could just hit a melee and neutralize them. So, but here I was towards the back of the ranged group, so it's pretty safe to alter that. Mirror image for this blood price, and then out of this is where I lust for the upstairs group, and we get our first seeds. Lust for the ranged, seeds. Our general philosophy in this phase is to drop seeds to the right and then soak to the left. So you kind of always are going right to drop your seeds, and then we rotate clockwise to soak. We got 2 seeds as ranged and just 1 melee. That's completely random. So as these drop, we'll rotate clockwise, and I'm actually going to not be a team player here, because as I keep harping on, with my combust being such a tight timer, I don't have time to walk over there and soak. I need to be fireballing and fire blasting to get combust back. If we had 2 seeds to soak, I'd just take the L and do it, but here I just greeted for it. Next seeds here coming out. Again, same principle, drop to the right and soak the one on your left. He's below 30% now, so I'm going to be scorching in the Wild Hunt Tactics window. And this is where I need my second combust ready. So I'm going to Frost Nova for the DC before we get knocked. And then our entire group kind of lines up over here to bait. So what we get here is we get our first Ravage, we get Seeds, and we get a Massacre. So I have just enough time to squeeze in a combust right here if I'm on track like I should be. So when we're all stacked up like this in a line, we ensure that the Ravage will go here, and it also ensures that the first few Massacres will go here before it updates to our new position, so it gives us some free time to kind of get a lay of the land and drop the seeds. I think I get this seed too. So I gotta go way right here to drop this seed. Just blink into some open space. Drop my seed here. I'm always prepared to block there if I need to. Like I'm fine ice blocking, but I felt pretty safe that pool. Just go around melee there and get over to my seed. Knock back here, and I need to top myself before this blood price. So a healing pot and barrier before this blood price. And then I'll heal again coming out of it because it still just trucks you. Blood price, Hellstone back up. Drop seeds right. And soak left. And this knockback I can alter because melee kind of gets knocked sideways. So I'm pretty safe to alter without hitting anything. And this is a kind of a lull in mechanics here where we have a bunch of time to just hit boss. So I need to be over here eventually, but I was just taking my time because we have time, so. This coming up is the worst overlap where we get every single mechanic at once. So what happens here is we're lined up again as a raid, so we get the second pizza slice to happen here, and we get the massacres to start over here as we gateway over here into the open space. And then when we get over there, we're going to have a knockback with seeds. So for the knockback, we get knockback as range, but melee all have knockback immunities. You know, they have Transcendence, they have Disadvance, they have Alter Time, 2 bubbles, and then we bop our Warrior and our Feral as well for them to immune it. That's just rough. You just gotta live that. Drop seeds, and then I have my Combust back up again right when I need it. Good for boss damage here. One more knockback, and then the last blood price. This, I still have my mirror image rolling, and I barrier and step into the link. That's everything I can do to live this blood price. Let's see, it doesn't hit me too hard. These are the last seeds that we're actually going to soak. Drop right, soak left. Getting low. One more knockback that I can alter because melee's going to get knocked kind of to the side here, not at me. And then these seeds we just drop anywhere. Hit boss. And we got him. That's the kill, and that is Cutting Edge. But thanks for watching. Sorry this went so long. I hope you learned something. This was just my second tier rating and my first time ever getting CE, so this one was pretty special for me. If you're working on Donnie, try to play phase 3 like I did, and try to play phase 2 the exact opposite of how I did. But thanks again, and I'll see you in SOD.